As Paralyze heads into early access, expectations are very high, and that's why I want to do a series of mini videos to set realistic expectations. And today's mini video is talking about transportation. Now, transportation is a big thing. I know a lot of people are excited for cars and other possibilities in Paralyze. However, the Paralyze team actually has been very transparent about these limitations and what people should not expect when they open up their game. The team released a long list of features we're going to get on day one versus what could come during early access. As you can see here, during early access, we are going to get vehicles such as cars and bikes. We're even going to get boats and houseboats and of course swimming. However, that means if you purchase Paralyze on day one for early access, you are not going to have any cars, you're not going to have any bikes, and you're not going to have any boats. Honestly, I think this is fine as long as they work diligently and they bring it in a way that is both functional and also pleasing. Yes, I do think we should have cars before they launch into the full game, and frankly, houseboats are above and beyond what I would anticipate. So the question remains, if we don't have any of these modes of transportation, how is transportation going to work in Paralyze? We know that Paralyze is an open world environment with a bunch of rabbit holes. These rabbit holes, of course, do equate to most of the workplaces and potentially maybe some of the other lots too. I don't know all about what is going to be a rabbit hole for sure and what is not, so we'll have to stay tuned for that. But regardless, you still have to go from point A to point B without instant teleportation. So the question is, how is it going to work? As Lillian asks, since cars won't be available during early access, does this mean that only this town is planned to be walkable with future worlds and towns requiring cars? Alex actually answered that they are thinking about how they can make all their towns walkable. Even after we add cars, if we add more towns in the future, they will probably be all walkable to some degree, because otherwise, visiting other lots and going on foot would take too long, and just walking would take too much of your day. Now, honestly, this is interesting consideration. When you're creating an open world environment, you have to think about time passing, and you have to consider the practicality of getting from point A to point B. Making the towns smaller and walkable, I actually personally like. I think having a walkable town actually adds to the charm and adds more possibilities. As Jeremy says, the game is going to be open world, that is not going to be any vehicles when it launches into early access. However, we'll have to wait and see what our fancies take us. So honestly though, they already answered this because they told us we're going to get cars, bikes, and houseboats, and even horses, and I assume you might be able to ride the horses around town. However, keep in mind, we don't know the timeline for this whatsoever. They could add transportation very early into early access, or it could be a long time. Another complicated factor is we simply don't know how long early access will last. Sometimes early access might last a couple months to a year, and sometimes early access lasts many years. And because this game is relying on free updates rather than DLC, I do think that also changes the conversation about all of this. Now, I know on my channel it seems to be a split on people who care about cars and people who cannot care less. Honestly, I think people like cars just for the immersive factor in being able to own them, but a lot of people also want to see features for their cars. So the question is, are there going to be any interesting features for cars in Paralyze in the future? Since cars are going to be worked on during early access, this is more of a question regarding your hopes and ideas. Are there plans to include features like performing romantic interactions, getting an alarm installed, fixing up old cars, or any other tiny details? For example, your para struggling to close the door on a rundown car and pulling out of the driveway. Now, I gotta say, I do think that little details can make a huge difference. Personally, I would like Paralyze to come up with their own unique ideas as well. But Alex's answer, while a little bit vague, I think is very practical. As Alex says, our first objective will be to make the cars functional. After we make the cars functional, it's possible we will consider adding these features and more. But even though they do consider fan requests, they say, we need to get the basics down first. And I know that's not an exciting answer, but in reality, that is the most important important thing right now. And of course, the community around Paralives is very creative, hoping for some really interesting features. This person said, wondering in the future about car and boat gameplay, and to a lesser extent, bikes. For example, could there be non-mandatory minor maintenance tasks that make an owner feel better about the vehicle, have no other impact? Now, what I do like about this question is they do want those little details, but they're also saying, hey, it doesn't have to be super complicated. But again, they're saying it's too early to speculate on this. And of course, that makes sense. I would presume they're going to work on cars first. They could also work on bikes first. That might be actually a little bit easier. You can let me know in the comments below. And maybe we will see houseboats, if we do see them, way into the future. Again, I know this video wasn't super helpful in giving super specific answers, but my goal is to set expectations because not everyone sees these dev chats, and I just want to be honest about what to expect. Me personally, I don't care too much about transportation. I think it's great they're having it, but it of course is not my personal top concern. As always, please take care, stay cool if you're in the heat wave, and I'll see you in the next video.